Hi everyone. Today we're discussing data handling. In particular, we're going to discuss stem and leaf plots. What we're going to learn to do is firstly how to interpret stem and leaf plots. Next, we're going to learn how to work out the mean, median, mode, and range on the stem and leaf plots. And finally, we'll learn how to draw stem and leaf plots yourself. Now let's review where we are in the data handling cycle. The way data handling works is that you start by asking a question. This could be something that you want to research, or maybe a company wants to research something about their product. Next, you would collect data, and that collection of data will be based on the question you ask. So the way you collect the data and the questions you ask in the data collection will be based on the initial question. Once the data is collected, you'll sort it, and that's the section that we are on today. We're going to look at how to sort data using a stem and leaf plot. In reality, normally you'd sort data using a spreadsheet or maybe using a different computer program, but today we'll learn how to sort data manually. After the data has been sorted, you represent the data, and a nice way to represent data could be in tables or in charts or graphs or something that makes sense to people so they can see it quickly. Finally, you'll answer the beginning question that you had. You'll interpret the data you've collected, see if the way you've represented it is misleading or if it's clear, and you'll be able to answer questions that you initially asked about the data. When we look at stem and leaf plots, you'll need to be able to work out the mean, median, mode, and range using the stem and leaf plot. Let's quickly revise what they are. The mean, median, and mode are all part of what is called measures of central tendency. These are the averages of the data. Now, the mean is kind of the pure average. The symbol for mean is X bar, and the way to calculate the mean is you add all the values together, you sum the values, and you divide that by how many values there are, the number of the values. The median is the middle value when the values are placed in numerical order. If you have an even number of values, what you do is you add together the two middle values and divide by 2. The mode refers to the value that appears most frequently. Next, I'm only going to discuss one measure of dispersion today, and that will be the range. The range is the largest value minus the smallest value. Another definition I'd like to mention is an outlier. Now, an outlier is a value that is beyond the usual range of the data. Either it's a very large value, much larger than the other values given, or a very small value, which is much smaller than the other values given. Now, what you'll notice is if you've got an outlier that is much larger than the other values, the mean will be a little bit higher than the median because the mean will be pulled up by that larger value. Also, if your outlier is much smaller than the other values, your mean will be lower than your median. So it's a good idea to have both the mean and the median when you're considering the averages. Let's look at interpreting stem and leaf plots. Here I've got a stem and leaf plot. Now, if I want to know what it's about, it's helpful to look at the key. The key tells me that these are measurements in centimeters. It also tells me what the number of the left, in other words, the stem means, and what the number on the right means. So here it says 1 line 9 is equal to 19 centimeters. So clearly I can see the number on the left, the stem is the tens, and the 9 is the units. So if I was to read these numbers out fully, this would be 0, 1, 6, 8, and then I've got 1 in front here, so that would be 11, 11, 15, 16, 19. Now I have a 2 in the front, so 22, 23, 23, 24, and so on. Let's look at how to work out the mean, the median, and the mode using the stem and leaf plot. Let's start by calculating the mean. Now we know that the mean is the sum of the values, that means all the values added together, divided by the number of the values. Now, using what I understand about a stem and leaf plot, I'm going to add up all the values together. Now the first few are easy because they have a stem of 0. Now I'm going to add my 10s, 2 11s, 15, 16, 19, 22, and so on. I'm not going to write them all down. Then I'm going to count how many values I have. Now make sure you count carefully so you don't make any mistakes. I get 21. So using my calculator, I add up what the sum of all the values are, divided by how many there are. I get 20,857 and so on. So to round off to 2 decimal places, I will say 20.86 and my unit is centimeters. Next, let's look at the median. Now I know there are 21 values, so if I say 21 divided by 2, I get 10 remainder 1, which means that my median will be at the 11th position, 10 on the left, 10 on the right, and the 11th value will be the middle. So I count on my stem and leaf plot to get to the 11th value, which is there. So my median is 23. I usually check at the end to see that I've got an equal number on the left and the right. Let's look at the mode. Now the mode or the modal value is the one that occurs most frequently. I can see that I've got 0, 0, 0 in a row there, in the 30s row, so my mode will be 30 centimeters. Lastly, let's look at the range. The range is the largest value minus the smallest value. So in this case, my largest value is 49, my smallest value is 0, and so my range is 49 centimeters. Now next we're going to look at a back-to-back stem and leaf plot. In this stem and leaf plot, I'm comparing two sets of data. A set of data for boys and a set of data for girls. If I look at the key, it has 6 and then a line and then 2 is equal to 62%, meaning the column in the middle refers to tens and the column on either side will refer to the units. So here if I had 6 and then a 2, it would mean 62%. So possibly this is a result for a test or something. Now if I look at the girls, that's a sort of standard stem and leaf plot that we saw before. However, if you look at the boys' data, the way you read it is you read it backwards. So that first value is 50, then the next value is 53%, and then 54%. What you'll also notice is that for the highest value for the boys, it's 97%. There are no values greater than 97%. But for the girls, the highest value would be 100%. Now let's look at the measures of central tendency for the girls and the boys, as well as the range. So starting with the girls, the mean will still be the sum of the values over the number of the values. So I'm going to add up all the values, remembering that I don't just use the units, I must use the tens and the units. I'm not going to write those all down. Then I'm going to count how many values there are. It seems when I count them, I get to 16. So the total for the sum of the values is 1239 out of 16. And that gives me 77,4375. So to round that to 2 decimal places, I'm going to have 77.44%. For the median, I know that there are 16 values, which means if I divide that by 2, I'll get 8. 8 on the left and 8 on the right. So that means that my median is going to occur between the 8th and the 9th value. Let's see where the 8th and 9th value lie. The 8th and 9th value are 74 and 77. So to calculate what the median is, I need to add 74 with 77 and work out the average of those two. 74 plus 77 is 151. So if I halve that, I get 75.5. Next, the mode will be the most frequently occurring value. Now, starting at the beginning, you can see that 73 is a mode, but there's also another mode of 84. So we can say that this data is bimodal, meaning that there are two modes. My range will be the largest value minus the smallest value. My largest value is 100. My smallest value is 52. And so my range is 48%. Let's look at the boys. Now be careful with the boys because you're reading backwards. So the mean will be 50 plus 53 plus 54 plus 62. There's 3 of those, and so on. I'm not going to write them all down. And I'm dividing that by the number of values, and in this case, there are 15, one less than the girls. The sum is 1032, and when I divide that by 15, I get 68.8%. Next, if I look at the median, that'll be the middle value. If there are 15 values, 14 divided by 2 is 7. So that means my middle value will be the 8th value. 7 on each side, and so that will be the 8th value. Let's count where that will lie. Remember to count backwards, and that will be 66%. Next, let's look at the mode. You can see that the mode is 62%. Finally, let's discuss the range. The range will be the largest value minus the smallest value, and so I get 47%. Now let's quickly compare the values between the boys and the girls. If I look at the range for both, the range for the boys and the range for the girls, those two values are very similar. However, who did better? The mean for the girls is 77.44%, and the mean for the boys is 68.8%. So it seems at the moment that just looking at the mean, the girls did better. If I look at the median for the girls, 75.5%, and the median for the boys, 66%, again, I see that the girls performed quite significantly better. Lastly, if I look at the mode, it seems like the mode is not that much help. The mode for the boys is 62, and the mode for the girls is 73 and 84. And I don't think there's enough modal values to really be a huge contribution. But you could say that for the girls, the mean, the median, and the modal values are all higher. So I would say that the girls performed better in this test than the boys. Let's look at creating your own stem and leaf. Now for this data, or for any data, it's important to look for what the minimum value, the smallest value is, and what the maximum value is. The reason you do this is so that you can know how to set up your stem and leaf. So the maximum value seems to be 185, which means my smallest stem I'll make 14 and my largest stem I'll make 18. Now the way I set it up is I start off by doing an unordered stem and leaf. So I'll set up my stems. Remember I said my minimum will be in 14 and my maximum will be 18. And then I write down the values. Now I just cross out the values as I go. So 163 will give me 3 in the 16 column, or row, sorry. 170, 185, 165, 172, and so on. I'm not going to show all the steps. Now once I've done that, I count quickly to see how many data values I had initially and how many I've got in my stem and leaf, just to double check that I haven't left anything off. And I got 22 for both, so I should be fine. Now I create an ordered stem and leaf. I use my unordered values to help me. So again, my stems are running 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. You don't want to have stems with no values. And now I add the leaves in order. I like to separate my leaves by a comma, or you could just leave a little space. And I'm not showing all of that. Now to finish off, you put in a key. And we've looked at keys before, how they work. And there you go. I'm done. I'm just going to neaten things up a little bit. And my stem and leaf is finished.